Hi, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Nice. Welcome to everyone here at UQ and also to everyone joining virtually. My name is Senlina. I'm the National Vice President of Professional Development at SONA, the Student Organised Network of Architecture, and we're the leading student body. It's part of the Australian Institute of Architects, if you haven't heard of us already. So thank you so much for coming in person today. It's really great to have you all here. So I am one of the creative directors for Super Studio 2025 this year, and I'm also joined here with my co-creative directors, Chloe and Joel from Alcorn, Middleton, and we'll be able to hear from them formally in a second. So I should also let you guys know that we have a Q&A session at the end. So if you have any questions, just write them down and you'll have a chance to ask as well. And that goes for everyone online too, so feel free to pop them into the chat. And just to let you know, also the session is recorded. So to start, the Australian Institute of Architects acknowledges the First Nations peoples as the traditional custodians of the lands, waters and skies of the continent now called Australia. We express our gratitude to their elders and knowledge holders whose wisdom, actions and knowledge have kept culture alive. We recognise First Nations peoples as the first architects and builders. We appreciate their continuing work on country from pre-invasion times to contemporary First Nations architects and respect their rights to continue to care for country. So Super Studio wouldn't be possible without our national partner, Alspec, who is one of our major sponsors. If we have a representative from Alspec on the line here with us today, would you like to say a few words?
Thanks, Senlina. I'm Spiros Kontominis. I'm the National Specification Manager from Alspec, and welcome everyone. It's both an honour and a privilege to be speaking on behalf of Alspec as the proud sponsor of Super Studio 2025. At Alspec, we understand the power of collaboration, innovation, and the importance of fostering creativity within the architectural community. Super Studio represents a kind of innovative platform where emerging architects, designers, and visionaries come together to push the boundaries of what's possible, and we're incredibly excited to be part of that journey. I'd like to thank the AIA for creating this exceptional platform and to all the participants for their commitment to shaping a better and more sustainable future through architecture. Enjoy the journey ahead, have fun, and we can't wait to see the inspiring work that will emerge. Thank you.
Thanks so much. So Super Studio, as an overview for you guys, is a national conceptual design competition for students of the built environment. It's a really unique experience. As some of you know, I think you've also participated before. It empowers students to explore new design horizons and to enjoy that creative process, building valuable connections with students across universities as well as industry professionals. So as a brief, what's on? This is the program, and you'll also find this on the website if you scan the QR code, but I'll just quickly run through it. So today we have the reading of the brief, and then tomorrow at 12 AEST will be the last chance to register. So you're welcome to make teams, groups today, decide whether you want to participate, and then register by 12 tomorrow. We'll also have a design day talk in the afternoon, also from Chloe and Joel. And then we'll hear you'll be able to participate in sessions with your mentors on the 4th of August in person. And then a second design day talk, which will be happening virtually on the 5th of August, a mentor session online with each of your mentors that you'll be paired up with on the 6th, followed by your online submission, which will be due on the 7th, and then your local presentations. So the national presentations will then happen a week later on the 15th of August. Don't worry if you don't remember all those dates, they're all on the website. So to hear from our co-creative directors, Chloe and Joel, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Thanks, Senlina. G'day, everyone. So my name's Joel Alcorn from Alcorn, Middleton. This is Chloe Middleton. So we're really excited to be working with Senlina here to present the brief. So we came up with this brief. Just a little bit of background for some people that have entered before. At my time at QUT, I entered 2 of these. I think it was it 2009, 2011, something like that. I was fortunate enough to have both times that I entered was the national finalist. And really what I loved about Super Studio is just the explorative nature of the competition. And really, I quite often reflect on the projects, the competition entries that we'd been a part of, me and my team. And it sort of like has really influenced the work that we do in practice. You know, like I often look at a lot of these quick ideas and things that we experimented through that process, and it really does like sort of has sort of trained and influenced our work and how we approach things, because we really love to tell a story and a narrative through our work, and we follow, I guess, that narrative the whole way through to the realisation of projects. So I guess with this brief, we really wanted you to, you know, be the author and the creators. So we're providing you, I guess, the steps, but we want you guys to take full ownership of this and have a lot of fun.
And as Joel said, I'm Chloe Middleton from Alcorn Middleton. And in complete contrast to what Joel just said, I never actually partook myself in Super Studio during university. But in creating this brief with Joel and Senlina, we had so much fun sort of thinking back to, you know, what it was like during the university days, where Joel and I are now, you know, about 13 years out of uni. And that's our complete, I guess, careers together in starting Alcorn Middleton. So we've been together almost 13 years doing this as a practice. But harping back to Super Studio and what it means, you know, to create this brief, it was really fun, and I guess a wonderful way to imagine, you know, what a project could be without the constraints of real life situations, standards, compliance. And it was just taking it back to what creativity is and what that means to all of us differently within the architecture and design, I guess, discipline.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, guys.
No worries.
So it has been a huge honor being able to prepare the brief with Chloe and Joel, and it's been a lot of hard work. And I think if you know me, I've been itching to tell you about it. So I'm so excited to share it with you guys. And I really hope that you'll enjoy this journey as much as we did in preparing the brief. All right, so just another quick reminder, we have design day talks throughout the week as well. So we'll be hearing from Chloe and Joel again tomorrow at 3:30, and then we'll be back here in this room.
So maybe just on those talks, just quickly.
Yeah.
So tomorrow we'll be talking in particular about one project that was very speculative in nature, but actually got built. And then we'll be talking to a number of our projects to just talk you through how some of that ideation sort of came about and how that came through in the end in the built form as well. So that talk in particular will be quite helpful to, you know, I guess, think about the process that we're wanting you to explore. And then the second talk, so that's with a friend of mine who I used to work with, Matt Drysdale and Goulet. So Matt Drysdale, his work is very speculative in nature. So I thought he would be very suited as part of this kind of series for Super Studio. But he does fantastic work and, you know, beautiful diagrams and things. So that's going to be a really fantastic discussion with all of us as well.
So those are some clues for you guys. Also, just to note that the reason why we have design day talks, it's an opportunity to feed into your design process and to offer some nourishment as well to your process. So would really encourage you to tune in, and also your friends. Like, it's just a link so anyone can join and watch. All right, prizes. So I'll quickly list these, but they're also available on the website. The state runners-up to 2 teams will receive a prize within your states, and that's complimentary SONA membership for 2026, an office immersion, architecture stationery vouchers, and as well as a feature on state socials. They're moving up, then the state winner receives also the membership, stationery voucher, but also progression to national judging, where you will be eligible to a chance to win $3,000. An office immersion, as well as a feature in our national SONA magazine. It's called Depict. If you haven't checked it out on the website, would really encourage you to. and then as well as features on social media. The national winner will then receive a $3,000 cash prize, membership, as well as your work featured in the Architecture Australia magazine. As a SONA member, you should be receiving those magazines as well. So it's a really great way to see your work promoted, as well as featuring in the magazine, SONA magazine, and social media. $3,000, it's pretty great. So we'll get started with the brief. Would you guys like to start? Yeah.
Yes.
So it arrives without warning. It does not speak. It cannot be moved. It is indestructible and uncontainable. Nothing grows in its presence, but most importantly, it is unaffected by solar and lunar events. Within its fixed shadow, the surrounding context becomes inaudible, an eerie zone of silence where sound is absorbed, yet speech persists, like within a bubble. Gravity weakens to approximately 0.3% of Earth's strength. And to humans, it has become known as the phenomenon, the monolith condition. So welcome to the monolith condition. The year is 2061. 7 black monoliths have appeared, one on each continent. Each takes the form of a towering vertical structure called the anchor, 30 meters wide, 30 meters long, and 30 meters buried beneath the surface and extending to match the height of the tallest structure on that continent. The material is unknown. Some describe it akin to Vanta black, lightless, dimensionless. Their origin is undetectable, and each is situated within the densest urban center. These are known as the mega monoliths. But within each continent, another phenomenon occurs, the emergence of smaller anchors in the capital cities of each state or territory. Standing 100 meters tall, 10 meters wide, and 10 meters deep, but also 30 meters buried underground. And these are referred to as fragments. So the reason why we also, I guess, chose 2061 as the date to set the scene is that it's sort of close enough to reality, but still further enough in the future that you can sort of understand, you know, maybe what it might be like, you know, within that, I guess, into the future dimension.
We didn't want to project too far where we're all talking about flying this and flying that and whatever else. And maybe just a further explanation. No, you're okay on that.
So despite not interacting with sunlight, both mega and fragmented anchors generate the still fall, a fixed field of complete darkness extending from their northeastern face. But this is not a shadow, but a constant void. It's consistent, unshifting, and unaffected by time, weather, or celestial conditions. Its shape is relative to the anchor's scale and form, but it differs between the mega and fragment anchors, forming at a fixed 45-degree angle, as though cast by a perfect shadow, but again, independent of solar positioning. So while the anchors themselves absorb the light, the still fall can still accommodate artificial light, color, and materials, though these appear altered, diffused, and diminished. All anchors emit a subtle hum, inaudible, yet physically perceptible to some. Many describe it as an aura. Some believe it alters consciousness. Others believe it carries a message. For some, it is sacred. For others, unbearable. Some say the mega monoliths and fragments are connected, perhaps by a system or network or something else entirely. No one knows for sure. Their function remains a mystery. But in their presence, new economies, rituals, political systems, and psychological behaviours begin to form. These silent masses have irrevocably disrupted the idea of public space, and students must now consider what new types of civic rituals, services, or responses could emerge. So Super Studio, as Senlina said, is a national conceptual design competition, and it gives students the license to explore highly creative and speculative responses to a design brief. And we want students to reach beyond the familiar, to consider the unthinkable in order to imagine the necessary. This year's brief introduces a disruption humans have never encountered. So how do we respond?
So architecture has, this is a provocation. Architecture has always carried a civic responsibility to shape spaces. And it's not just for individuals, but for communities, cultures, and ecologies. Under the banner of the monolith condition, Super Studio 2025 invites students to examine how architecture might respond to large-scale disruptions in service of the collective. But this year, the response does not come first. First comes the encounter. Students must begin with perception. Before designing for the monolith, they must feel its presence. What does it mean to stand near the anchor? What challenges in the steel fall? What shifts in sound, light, gravity, time, or self? What does your city feel like when one part of it stops moving? This is the phenomenology of the monolith condition, and from it comes the existential. When certainty disappears, how do we adapt? When ritual breaks, how do we begin again? So I guess we're sort of stressing around the phenomenology. We're stressing this is what we want you to think about, constructing emotive responses. Place yourself in that experience. So close your eyes. Imagine walking into the still fall. What can you hear? What can't you hear anymore? How does your breath feel with less gravity? What happens when colour fades? That's your first design tool, not your pen, but your senses. The anchor isn't just an object, it's a presence. Architecture often begins with the site analysis, but this year, your site includes soundlessness, stillness, weightlessness. These conditions create a new emotional and spatial reality. So phenomenology might sound complex, but here it simply means start with what you feel, what your body senses, what shifts in your awareness before you even begin to draw. This year's competition is not asking for immediate solutions. Instead, it's asking students to pause, to stand beside the monolith, the anchor, and take notice of what changes. That's phenomenology, designing not from data or diagrams, but from lived experiences. So each proposal should emerge from this altered state, whether it embraces, ritualizes, or fortifies against the anchor's presence. It may soothe or disturb, illuminate or obscure. It can be architectural or systemic, ephemeral or monumental. What matters is that it means something, and that meaning is drawn from your encounter. This is not just a design brief, it's a provocation, a call to observe, to imagine generously, and to act with intention.
So the challenge: to reimagine civic space in response to this monolith condition. Participants must ground their proposals in the reality of a disrupted civic and ecological fabric. Drawing from the narrative established in the preamble and provocation, students are expected to interpret the monolith not only as an object, but as a force, spatial, cultural, and psychological. Each design should respond to both the mega and fragmented monolithic presence and the system it unsettles or initiates. So to support this exploration, students must respond to the following 6 criteria. Number 1, contextual response. Participants must investigate 2 distinct contexts and scales. 1, the mega monolith, site located on one of the 7 continents, to consider its impact on global, urban, or ecological systems at a macro scale. And then 1 fragmented monolith site within their local Australian context, hyper-focusing on how it disrupts or transforms everyday civic life. Students should explore how each scale presents different challenges and opportunities for design, and how architecture might negotiate or reframe the systems that are unsettled by these presents. So I guess this design operates differently at different scales, and you're asked to explore both a global site for the mega monolith and a local Australian site for the fragmented. So this isn't about 2 separate projects or 2 separate ideas. It's about observing how scale and setting influence your thinking. So, you know, what happens when a huge silent object appears in Paris or Nairobi or Sao Paulo? What happens when a fragment appears in Brisbane, Alice Springs, or regional Tasmania? Is the public reaction cultural, political, spiritual, or fearful? What systems are disrupted? Public transport, ecological corridors, or internet signals? Your mega site is speculative, but your fragmented site must feel intimately local. So number 2, spatial strategy. Propose a design that is sensitive to both the fixed stillness of the monolith and the dynamic condition it generates. There is a duality in responding to both the monolith itself and the stillfall. What happens on the fringes, within, and beyond? So the monolith is still, but everything around it will still move. So how do you respond to both its physical presence, but also its broader spatial effects, particularly the stillfall, that eerie zone of silence and reduced gravity? So design doesn't just happen on the monolith. Think about what happens on the fringes, where the world meets the edge of the monolith's influence. What happens within the stillfall, a space with no sound, lower gravity? How do people behave? And then beyond, how do communities organize themselves around or in response to it? And how does architecture act, confronted with a force that doesn't move but changes everything? So the 3rd criteria, temporal thinking. Integrate time as a design factor. Consider interventions that are temporary, cyclical, evolving, or responsive. How might your proposal adapt if the monolith vanishes? It multiplies or it transforms? So time is not just a background factor. Think about your project and how it should embrace it. Things change, you know, the monolith may disappear or spread. You know, how will your design adapt to that? Could your intervention grow, erode, or reconfigure itself over time? Is it built to last, or is it meant to just fade away? Is it a ceremonial space, so once a year, or is it continually inhabited? And does it carry a mythology that changes over generations? Number 4, systems awareness. Demonstrate an understanding of the interconnected systems such as natural, infrastructural, digital, or social that the monolith affects or reveals. Your design should work across scales and disciplines. So the monolith doesn't just interrupt space, it ripples through systems. Think about how your design touches infrastructure, ecology, technology, the public, policy, community dynamics. What flows are interrupted? You know, roads, drainage, animal migrations, or data lines. Could your design become a new system that replaces or rewires what was lost? You don't have to solve everything, you just have to show an awareness of broader networks. Number 5, ethical imagination. Consider the broader implications of your proposal. Who benefits? Who is excluded? How does your design encourage equality, sustainability, and collective meaning making in a time of uncertainty? So the design has consequences. This is your moment to think deeply about who your work includes, excludes, supports, or risks. This isn't about virtue signaling. It's about meaning and agency. Who gets access to your intervention or who doesn't? Are you amplifying marginalized voices or are you reinforcing power? How does the community feel in your space? Safe, transformed, interrogated? Could your project become a place for resistance, grieving, celebration, or reconciliation? And the last criteria. Oh, we only have one. I forgot, sorry.
All right, so now that you've heard all of that, there are a set of judging criteria by which we'll use to assess the actual submissions. So your work will be evaluated against these lenses, which value imagination, resonance, and stories, and the stories that your design dares to tell. So number 1, civic resonance, public imagination and social value. That is 20%. Number 2 is originality or innovation, which encompasses the creativity in responding to the provocation, 20%. Number 3 is atmosphere and effect, how evocative your spatial and visual expression is, and that covers also 20%. And then environmental and psychological impacts, which address the ripple effects of the monolith and its networks at 10%. And the number 5 is the quality of the submission and presentation in terms of addressing narrative and storytelling, which weighs at 30%. So taking all of that into consideration, this is the lens through which we'll assess each of the submissions. All right, so just some practical information. There's a digital submission and an in-person presentation. These are both due on Wednesday, the 7th of August. The digital one is at 9 a.m. AEST, and then the in-person presentation is just 5 minutes with a 2-minute Q&A, and it's a presentation to the state and territory jury on that same day. So on the website, there'll be a set of start times and presentation day locations, so make sure you check that out. And yeah, please read the brief carefully. There's a lot of text, but I think it's important for us to realize that this is a story that we presented to you. And I think it's okay if you just only resonate with certain parts of it. I don't think you have to absorb everything.
Yeah, I guess that's the idea, is that there's a lot in there, of course, but whatever speaks to you, like, follow that. And of course, we want you to address everything in the brief, but find those things that appeal to you and follow those through. That's how you'll come up with a really, powerful imagery and a great story to tell. Yeah.
So we have some references that will help jog your thinking. So did you want to start with Moonhoop?
Yes. So in the brief, we've got the brief document, which is going to be sent out. There's quite a lot of references through there. We've just highlighted a couple which we'll talk to, but feel free to go through and explore as much as you'd like. First, we'll just talk about Moonhoon. So he's a South Korean architect, and fortunately, Chloe and I got to have a dinner with Moonhoon, and he always carries around a sketchbook with him. And so we got to look at his sketchbook, which is pretty much what you're seeing on the screen there, that these kind of ideas and beautiful illustrations. But we wanted to talk to him because it's an intimate glimpse into his creative process. His practice offers a playful yet controversial reference to the monolith condition. Bold, eccentric, and often verging on the absurd, yet always deeply spatial and symbolic. His buildings operate less as functional structures and more as architectural characters, charged with emotion, narrative, and provocation. And then secondly, we wanted to talk to Bernard Shumey.
Yeah, so we've referenced Bernard Shumey's quintessential, I guess, Parc de la Villette. So this is a key reference, not just for its architectural thinking, but for how it communicates complex ideas. Like Moonhoon, Shumey distills depth into bold, legible visuals. His follies act as spatial markers that provoke new ways of thinking about the monolith condition as interconnected anchors across global and even intergalactic networks, both with use of a restrained palette to focus attention on core ideas. This reminds us, don't depend on text to explain the narrative, let your visuals carry the thinking.
Yeah, and the reason for that is you obviously only have a couple of boards to present
Your
ideas. So we want you to not be dependent on text so much. We want you to be really expressive in how you communicate through like the visual kind of imagery and diagrams that you come up with. Yes, 9/11. So we've got the 9/11 memorial in there as a reference as well. So this is by Handel Architects, and it demonstrates how architecture can hold space for memory and emotion through monumental restraint. The void acts as powerful anchors, silent, immovable, and charged with collective meaning. Its use of absence, repetition, and material weight communicates without words, offering a deeply spatial narrative. It reminds us that form alone, or in this case, the negative of form, can carry profound emotional and cultural resonance. Another one that we've sort of highlighted here is Ian Strange. So he's an Australian artist that does some fantastic work. So Ian Strange's interventions on domestic architecture transform familiar suburban forms into striking sculptural presences. Working across installations, photography and film, he manipulates light, scale, and material to create tension and reframe the everyday. Like the other references, his work conveys complex spatial and social ideas with visual clarity, reminding us that narrative can be embedded directly into form without relying on explanation. And the last one, you probably don't need to bring that one up as such.
But it's a movie called Stalker by Tarkovsky. And you don't have to watch the movie. I think you can sort of skim it on YouTube. I think there's a copy of it on. It's a very old film. I think from when is it, 1979. But it is a powerful reference for the monolith condition. It's this slow pace, haunting imagery, and kind of enigmatic zone shift for our perception of space, time, and meaning. Tarkovsky was a master of storytelling through stillness and ambiguity, using minimal explanation to provoke deep imagination. Notably, the film's toxic production environment is often linked to his untimely death, adding another layer of eerie intensity to the work. So again, I think it's just that sort of less is more, or really hyper-focusing on one element, more so, sort of kind of championing that rather than saying, look at everything in this picture, you're sort of trying to focus, your thoughts.
So I guess in the brief, as you go through, we sort of say, to use the tools of cinema, about, you know, like the exploration of an idea and the build up and that sort of intensity through works. So that's very clear. Yeah, so when assembling the panels, consider these aspects for your presentation. Carry narrative weight to convey a story diagrammatically and or visually. Resist literal explanation. Powerful, evocative and surreal atmospheric imagery. We're looking for work that exists between the known and the imagined. Use the tools of cinema, mood, sequencing, timing, tension, to explore how the monolith and the void is perceived, encountered and adorned. Don't over-explain, let the work speak. And what's important too is not just the monolith, so what happens around the monolith, say, but we want you to also focus on the still fall, which is that perfect 45 degree shadow that's cast. So we want you to focus on addressing both those, not just focusing one or the other.
There was just a pickup on one of the slides. The end presentation date is August 7th, which is a Thursday. So someone in the chat said it was a Wednesday. So whoever said that, thank you. So now we have time for Q&A. There's a lot of information. So if you need time to process, that's okay. I have my contact details there, so you can reach out to me. But just from the floor, do we have any immediate questions from you guys? Yes, Sean.
Thanks for that. But class theory requirement for the submission is two sheets.
That's right, it's 2 or 3 panels, but there's more details on the actual submission, like physical submission requirements in the brief document. So when that's on the website, you're able to have a look in more detail. Yeah.
There's 2001 Space Odyssey, the big inspiration, right? That's what's in that.
Yeah, well, again, the storytelling aspect of that, it's about evocative, like imagery, just I guess, the way things are kind of framed and how that sort of says more than necessarily, you know, the voices in the film. So I guess we're trying to get you guys to maybe think more about the atmospheric nature of things and how you might explore those ideas, you know, that way. Yeah, just to open your mind, because like what Chloe said previously, we wanted to sort of abandon as much as we could about the technicalities of compliance and this and that. You know, this is an opportunity to
Have fun.
have fun. Yeah. And you will find that a lot of these tools, it is actually transferable in practice as well.
Oh, nice. So here's just a little shout out to Depict. The magazine link is there, but it's also on the website. So definitely check that out. Any other questions from the floor? Is everyone excited? Yes.
Oh, yeah. There are actually a few.
So I'll just repeat the question to people online.
Yes.
It was any other movies you'd recommend? Yeah.
Look, there are more references there. You know, probably the one that most people would reference is maybe Arrival. You know, that's, you know, obviously this big thing that just appears. So I guess what we're trying to say, it's not an alien thing or whatever else. Maybe you go down that track, who knows? But we kind of chose the monolith as a way of giving some kind of condition onto a city, a new condition to then respond to. So that was the point of the monolith. And then also that perfect shadow is to really have a bit of fun with that. You know, what happens in this, you know, like, I guess, fixed field that doesn't change. And, you know, like what happens on those thresholds, you know, where you have a city and then basically come into this shadow, you know, that
We also have, you know, I think there's about 5 movies that we've referenced, but you know, you can go crazy and if you've got more. But we also looked at, you know, the typical Blade Runners, more so the old one rather than the new one with the new Hollywood actor, more the old one, the 1982 one by Ridley Scott. There's also a movie called High Rise. I haven't actually seen that one, but it looks really interesting and quite close to what, you know, maybe this monolith condition is about. Then obviously Stalker and also the Mad Max movies, but less so about the dystopian aspect of the Mad Max movies, more so how, you know, the Mad Max movies is like a beautiful kind of creative world, but it still resembles aspects of real life that we know, you know, so they're driving around in these vehicles that are trucks that are just embellished and crazy. So, you know, that it has elements of those, you know, familial aspects that you can kind of associate with, hence the whole, you know, 2061, you know, it's far enough, but not too far in the future that it's outlandish. Yeah.
And then maybe just one more reference that isn't on there, but, you know, you're asking about movies as such. Sid Mead, he was somewhat of a futurist. He created a lot of like the set designs for a lot of movies, like you can think of Tron and all the cars and things. So I think he first started out in designing like automotive cars, but then got into like film and things. His stuff is really like explorative, and I think a lot of you know, car designs and futurist kind of things have been drawn from his work. So he might be great to explore as well.
Great references. Just looking at the chat, Alistair's mentioned ChatGPT. That's a great point, Alistair. In the brief document, you'll see at the bottom, there's a little paragraph that says AI use is prohibited for the submission. So we really want to hear from your story and the way that you construe these ideas and cohere them based on your interpretation of the brief. Hold off on ChatGPT, Midjourney. You'll have time to use them elsewhere. Another question from the South Australia team, clarifying that we have full freedom to pick the city.
Yes, you do.
You do, yeah.
So the local city, so the local in terms of the capital city or territory, full creative, you know, autonomy for that, but also internationally. If you want, when you look at the mega monoliths, if you want to pick Sao Paulo, Dubai, you know, Taiwan, if you've been to Seoul, all those places, you can pick any kind of city. That's why we sort of gave you the broad spectrum of what the constraints are, and you go off and just select which constraints and cities you want to pick. So
with that too, I guess with the location of the monoliths as well, that's up to you guys. You're creating this story. So the monolith could rise out of the water, for instance. You know, it could be in the middle of the botanical gardens. You know, you choose the setting, you know, depending on how you want to kind of show this and explore how it interrupts, you know, the spaces around that. And we reference the height, you know, the tallest building of, you know, that continent. So if we were to look at Australia, for instance, currently that's Q1. So that just gives you an idea on that mega monolith for the scale. But we're also talking 2061. If you want to say that it's a different building and it's way taller,
go for it.
It's up to you. But we've just chosen that as references for you guys to automatically just, I guess, you know, have a bit of scale there as well.
And that's connected to this question, which is, do we need to show the different conditions at each of the scales, on a global, national, state, territory, etc., or do we only focus on the local condition?
We want you to hyper focus on the local condition. That way, you know, because you have, I guess, knowledge, you know, say here in Queensland, it might be Brisbane, you've got a greater understanding, but perhaps you're you know, from Sydney or somewhere else, you might choose that particular city as well. We just want you to, I guess, have an idea of that that environment and how these conditions might change that sort of setting. And then I guess just talking to that too, what would be great is we want to encourage like globally or intergalactically, it'd be fantastic to see how these monoliths might be communicating. So showing that kind of network diagrammatically or through the story as well.
Great. The brief is now up. So if you have your laptop open, you're welcome to check out that website. From the WA team, are we providing the global macro scale and the local Australian context by comparing the disruption to them and then more focus on the local Australian context? So are you just comparing the disruption and then focusing on the local Australian context?
Yeah, so I guess what we wanted to show, because you know there's quite a lot to explore both, right? We wanted you to hyper focus on the local, but give an idea on how this at a macro scale, globally, you know, through a diagram, or you know, how is this affecting the world in different scenarios, for instance, which might be just focused on one, or you might further go and explain a couple other cities as well. Because every city, every country, every continent is going to perceive these things a little bit different as well. You know, that's cultural differences and the likes.
Yes, Sean.
So when you mention the monoliths communicate with each other, does it mean sentience? It means suggestion, intelligence?
So Sean's question is, when we say the monoliths communicate with each other, does that suggest intelligence?
So with that, it's we just want you to fill the void there. You know, you can take that as far as you want to take it. We're not being, you know, literally that they're all connected and it's this alien race kind of thing or whatever else. It's just another exploration for you to take further.
Yeah, so I guess we've left that a little bit ambiguous, so you guys can just fill in the gaps and you tell us how you perceive that.
And that was, I guess, that whole point. If there's certain aspects in this brief that really resonate with you, we want, like, you know, you've got a short period of time here. So find those kind of, you know, those cool aspects that you want to focus on and do those really well. And then, you know, go back to the brief and try and, you know, I guess, make sure that you're addressing the other areas as well.
One of the questions that could come out of that is, where did they come from? Like, where did they appear from? What's their story?
You can definitely, tell that side of the monolith rather than, from the point of it arriving, you can sort of give us the backstory if you'd like.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Before we answer those clearly, Lindy. Hi, Lindy.
Any other questions? No? Well, how about I'll mute this Zoom call, but we'll stay on. Yeah. So if you have any other questions, just pop them in the chat.